So John Lawyer. John is the Vice President of Energy Solutions at the Manufacturing Association of Central New York. I think most of us know that organization is MACNY. They're down the road here in Syracuse. John manages MACNY's energy efficiency outreach efforts, collaborates with the NYSERDA program, and I think John will tell you a little bit about that. John also is responsible for the joint buying opportunities that a lot of the members use at MACNY. John worked for Summit Software Company and Henbury Hill Consultants. John has a BA from Northwestern University, and then he got smart, went to Syracuse and got an MBA at Maxwell.
Stepped up to Big Ten. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just checking. How's it going? As Patrick mentioned, thank you very much for the introduction. I work at MACNY, Manufacturers Association. We represent 330 manufacturing and related companies in the central upstate region of New York. That is becoming broader all the time. It's about 22 counties of New York. We provide a variety of professional services as well as advocacy on behalf of our members. And so energy efficiency is right on mission for us. I mean, if we can help a company become more energy efficient. I'm reminded of a story listening to these two guys. I was at a meeting actually here with Tammy. And the question came up, what is advanced manufacturing? Advanced manufacturing, you normally think, oh, high-tech manufacturing. And the answer we concluded was that any company that is still manufacturing is a high-tech manufacturer. Because the only way to stay in business is to become increasingly high-tech and remain globally competitive. And I think that's true in the energy efficiency world too, that you have to make investments, capital investments, to have your company become more efficient. And this is a natural side effect of those kind of investments. So I'll give you the main message first, and then we'll drill down into some of the details. How many of you are familiar with NYSERDA? I figured, that's excellent, thank you. One thing, the way I like to explain NYSERDA is not necessarily what you have heard about in the news. You pay a tax on your energy bill. If you are a homeowner, it's probably not a very big deal. It might be $3 or $4. If you're a company, it might be $300,000 or $400,000 a year. It's called the Systems Benefit Charge, or the Energy Efficiency Portfolio Center, EAPS charge. Have you ever noticed this on your electric bill? Those of you who are professionals obviously would have noticed it on your company's bills. If you participate in it, you're paying a tax, and that money goes to New York State for the purpose of funding NYSERDA. I'll say a few modifiers to that a little bit later. But that money goes for a couple of different major functions of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. They do some research and development on things that will increase the energy efficiency, new energy efficient products, some bringing products to market, and that sort of thing. But they also set aside a pool of dollars to incentivize you to become more energy efficient. So they take that money and they give it back to you if you can demonstrate that you're saving electricity and natural gas. I think that's pretty cool. They could have just given you the money anyway. You could just left it in your pockets. I suppose that'd be okay too. However, the people of the state of New York, in their infinite wisdom, decided that they wish to reward this behavior. And you might ask why. Well, I think there's a number of reasons why. I mentioned that global competitiveness thing a minute ago. But also it's cheaper. It's cheaper to buy your energy efficiency by giving you money than it is to go build another power plant. So if they can avoid building some additional power plants, that saves the people of the state of New York several $1 billion. And not only do you become more globally competitive, you save your money. So we think this is a good thing. I was almost up to my main message. And my main message is they're particularly interested in having increased efficiency in your operations beyond what they've been able to accomplish in the past. Traditional energy efficiency programs have focused on things like lighting. Not too surprising, everybody uses it. Heating and air conditioning, same thing. So a lot of building envelope and air systems within the organization. So a lot of those low-hanging fruit, I believe you guys called them earlier, have been the focus of programs in the past. There are still lots of opportunities, especially since new systems are being invented all the time, LED lighting being a notable example. However, a lot of manufacturers, the cost of their energy is not in the building envelope or even in those air systems and light. The cost is in the process. You know, melting plastic, melting steel, heat treating parts, the compressed air running some of the machinery, all of these kinds of things. That's where the real energy is. And if we can save money in those processes, as was being suggested by the real examples, that makes a big impact on yours. Okay, cool. I didn't have a slide. I could have put all on one slide. So you can think of organizations as being somewhere along this continuum. And what NYSERDA hopes to do is to, with its various funding streams, move organizations along this process. So at the easiest to implement side of this continuum, you have incentives for simple equipment swap outs, MRO style. You know, I need to replace this motor or drive. I can go out and buy a more energy efficient one, and there's incentives to help you do that. I can help a company that gets a little bit further along this continuum might get engaged with NYSERDA around performing energy studies. So learning about how you can, perhaps you don't have the knowledge within house, learn how you can save additional energy both in your facility and your equipment, your process. So those studies, the program at NYSERDA is called FlexTech. FlexTech, I'm going to make him move around a lot in this recording. Back and forth. Energy studies, the FlexTech program will fund, will cost share those studies for you. So if you don't know the answer to a particular problem, you can perform a FlexTech study, and NYSERDA will provide some support for those energy studies through the FlexTech program. I'll say a few words about that in a minute. If you already know what the energy efficient measure might be, you might not need a study. In any case, moving further along, implementing larger energy projects, especially process improvement projects, that would be like a next phase, getting into how it is you're primarily consuming energy, and finally going beyond process projects to having a strategic energy plan. So you can view this as the highest level of engagement in an energy efficient kind of approach to your business, here being a relatively straightforward, easy entry into the process. So moving along, obviously, NYSERDA would like to have companies engage more richly in this kind of review. So, NYSERDA has a particular industrial efficiency program that has these characteristics. They have these goals, fairly dramatic goals. You might have heard of 15 by 15 and other energy goals of New York State. Well, as part of this, NYSERDA's goal is to save 1 million megawatt hours and 3.65 million MMBTUs by 2017. So if you can help with that, they'd really appreciate it. It's kind of nice working with an organization of government that wishes to give you money. They're performing vertical outreach. That is, they have hired contractors to supplement their staff. Those contractors serve different parts of the state. And this is to provide you with some free assistance in using these programs. So upstate, this is Clough Harbor Associates, CHA. We have a representative here. Stay accurate. See him after. Or see me, actually, because we're working with Clough Harbor on this. Downstate, there's ERS. There's also a data center focused contractor to do outreach in the data center world. If you have a large data center, these would be the folks we'd want to hook you up with. This is because data centers, even though they're a relatively small part of our total energy consumption, they're growing faster than most other sectors. So you can save a lot of money in a data center. Just ask Syracuse University. So the key NYSERDA programs I want to talk about, FlexTech and the IPE, the Industrial Process Efficiency Programs. The key eligibility for this is that you must pay the system benefit charge, which I mentioned earlier. Most companies do now. Used to be there were a broad group of companies that did not, but that's really largely ended. But check your bills. Let us know. So the financial incentives are shown on this slide. We have the FlexTech study, which, like I said, I'll get into a little bit more, but this is to do assessments of particular problems at your facility, areas where you know you're using some energy, but you don't know how to save it, or even on your entire facility. So that's a 50-50 cost share on those engineering studies. There is a maximum of $1 million for those studies. I think that's annually. If you want to spend $1 million on an energy study annually, that would be a lot of studies. So I don't think you'd hit that target. On the industrial efficiency program, upstate, the electric Incentive, financial incentive is 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Natural gas is $15 per MMBTU of the first year's energy saved. So they'll pay you the kilowatt hours you didn't use at 12 cents per kilowatt hour. There's a $5 million limit on the IPE program for electricity, and I don't recall the natural gas one. Is it $1 million?
Yes.
Yeah. $1 million. Again, if you were going to save that much energy at your facility, you would be everybody's best friend. Help meet those targets. We really appreciate it. So a little bit more about the FlexTech program. This is the energy study program. There are different approaches. Essentially, this is to help offset the external costs of having engineering, specialty engineers come in and assist you with this energy review. The cost share is 50-50, as I mentioned. Let's see, there's some other limitations. The nice thing about the program, it's very flexible on who you use as your outside provider. So for example, if you use a FlexTech provider, or qualified provider that NYSERDA has listed on its website, it makes the payment process much easier. Companies in the region like O'Brien & Gear, CNS Engineers, CHA, who am I forgetting? CDH Energy. These are all FlexTech providers, and they could be folks that you could take advantage of to perform your study. If you had an engineering firm that you preferred to use that was not on that list, that's also a possibility. The kinds of projects that you might consider: energy master plans, feasibility studies on a particular piece of equipment or process, a compressed air system, combined heat and power, etc. So those kinds of studies can be a pretty useful part of the process. As I say, depending on whether you use a NYSERDA qualified consultant or an independent consultant, the payment process changes a little bit. The cost share is still 50%. It's just whether you get reimbursed or they're paid directly. There are two levels, two approaches to how they provide incentives for equipment. One is through this pre-qualified program. Pre-qualified meaning you don't need to get permission from NYSERDA to do these particular swap outs. So you could think of this as like an MRO program. If you're investing in a small number of lighting fixtures, or a VFD, perhaps some heating equipment, on the website, if those pieces of equipment meet certain ratings, you can just buy it and fill out a one-page application and receive incentive check back for that. So a relatively easy process to use. The incentives are generally for below $30,000 in total incentives. So that's like the smaller program. For the IP program, these would be larger projects that would cumulatively add up to more than $30,000 worth of incentives. So this is, I think, where the big news is in terms of big process efficiency proposals. Process efficiency is not necessarily going out and buying a single piece of equipment. Anything that reduces your energy per unit of production would be considered a savings. I was speaking, for example, to a company last year. They were, in addition to swapping out some equipment, they were doing various lean activities with their staff. Well, those lean activities resulted in a number of small changes that added up to a considerable efficiency gain in the overall process, and they were able to put in for an incentive for that. Similarly, another organization was changing how they laid out their facility, again as a result of a lean initiative. They actually moved a loading dock from one side of the facility, they added another, so that they could have flow through the facility directly and line up their equipment differently. As a result, they had greater throughput for the amount of energy used and were able to put in for an incentive. So these are the kinds of process efficiencies that the IB program would help support. There is the minimum of $30,000. So bundling is allowed if you have two projects and they're eligible for a $15,000 incentive each. You would want to put them together in at the same time. What else do I want to say about this? There is a cap. I mentioned that cap again. Really looking for those $5 million projects. Just talk about this. Let's see. There is one additional opportunity for your operations and maintenance type programs. This is a lower level of incentive, but it can be considered as a type of project to include in your application. These would be, classic example would be like installing a leak testing and maintenance program for your company. So that compressed air reduction program, you put it in place for a period of time, you could receive 5 cents per kilowatt hour for the energy saved from that program. You'll notice here a 2-year measurement and verification is noted. That means they check at the beginning and end of the program, see that you installed it and kept doing it for a while. There are additional measurement and verification requirements on other NYSERDA programs as well. I didn't go into the details. It really depends on the size of the project. If your project is relatively small, in the tens of thousands, then no measurement verification may be required. They just see that you installed the measure. But as they get larger, you may have to prove that you indeed save the energy as a result of the new project, of the project implementation. So that's a little bit about the operations maintenance. There's the wrap up. You can call me. You can call Rich. You can call Chris. I don't have his contact information on the slide here. This is from Bluff Harbor. I still call you by that name. It's probably not right. CHA. You can call us and we'll help you to understand in greater depth what kinds of incentives are available for the kinds of projects that you're considering. We're paid, we're free to you. We're paid by NYSERDA to help you get these incentive dollars, help you fill out the applications, to help you do some preliminary analysis to see whether or not the project might qualify and things of that nature. I do have to mention one other thing. I think I have a little bit of time left. 2 years ago, I believe it was, the Public Service Commission, at the request of the investor-owned utilities in New York State, expanded the energy efficiency programs at National Grid, NYSEG, RG&E, and others. So now you can get incentives, and there are programs available from your utilities, your utility provider, as well as from NYSERDA. These projects were intended to be similar in nature, and they are. But for an individual project, the incentive may be greater from one or the other. And so it's useful to probably look at both. We have representatives from National Grid right here who work in that very project. So I think if you speak with them, if you speak with us, we'll try to direct you properly depending on your specific situation. So if you, for example, have a project in which their incentive might be a little bit higher, they're calculated differently between the two, should be fairly easy to compare. You can then submit the project. For a larger project, I certainly consider asking both. This is, I say, relatively new. The investor-owned utilities always have had energy efficiency projects, but they were generally for smaller firms in the recent past. And they were expanded to the higher consumption classes, SC3, SC3A, and National Grid, for example. So that's a little about questions. I guess I should turn over to Patrick for questions. Thank you very much.
So it's that time of the program where you get to ask questions of our panelists. So I thought maybe we start with the ISC students. So I want to put you on the spot, but is there anything you're dying to ask these individuals?
We did such a great job presenting.
Well, want me to come back to you? Okay. So let's open it up to anybody. Is there questions that are burning? I got a couple here.
On behalf of the students, I should say, I run into several former students from the Industrial Assessment Center, gainfully employed by engineering firms around the state who are in this area. So
it's a wonderful program.
And I would say boroughs use the IAC for surveys at all of our paper mills in New York.
Yeah, according
And
to
we were very pleased.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious about the Energy Star program and how important that's been in terms of establishing kind of a benchmark for you. Either.
Anyway. Yeah, we use that right up front. We, as I said, we benchmarked with Energy Star. We use that as periodically every year. We take a look at some of our facilities do an assessment against the criteria, the 23 criteria, and see where we stand. And we just kind of rotate through. Can't do every facility or every business every year. We hit a few businesses every year, and we just rotate through it. And it's been a very good help for us.
I don't have anything, we have not gone through that, the criteria, so I don't have any real comments on that. I would say though that any piece of equipment we buy, whether it's, you know, new motors, the only thing we buy are premium efficiency motors that are at the top end of the efficiency, on the, as far as getting their sort of rebates. Any HVAC equipment, we don't buy it. We'll pay a little bit extra. We won't buy it unless it's Energy Star. We know that it's going to be worth our while.
Energy Star also has programs that are set up, their focus groups. I don't know all of them, but I mean, there's automotive, there's glass, there's chemical, there's food manufacturing, where the different colleagues in each of those firms come in and you meet usually 1 or 2 days. Usually they're, I think, 4 out of 5 years they're in Washington, D.C. They travel the other 5th year. And you share best practices and things that are non-competitive with each other. So we've been involved in that for quite a few years, and it's a great opportunity. The Energy Star also provides monthly webinars. And we actually use it entirely. We send it worldwide. We videotape it, put it out to every one of our plants. We're pretty high on Energy Star.